We were like troubleshooting, with the nurses, with the doctors. They were completely frank with us because they didn't know how to treat him. And so, we hounded neurosurgery. They declined to intervene. His heart was failing. They were having to do all these different interventions, but none of it, what they understood was to help Sage, we had to actually go and address the thing that was causing the problem, which was his brain.
We had kind of become in closer contact and relationship with the lead cardiologist, the neurosurgery team, and the head of neonatology, because Sage's heart was under so much pressure from the increased blood flow of the AVM. That seemed like the most manageable aspect in real time. Of course, while you're working with that and working with the decreased blood flow to other parts of his body, there was this issue of, okay, we know he has this massive brain AVM. What can actually be done about that? What, even down the line, if we manage him to some point down the road, what could actually be done?
Yeah.
So that was the first that we had conversations about different types of interventions that can be done for somebody with an AVM. The problem with Sage is that his AVM was so large and he was so small that the neurosurgery team there felt that any attempt would be fatal and not at all worth the risk.
He also was, he had had several strokes. There had been, continued seizure activity. So it wasn't even just neurosurgery. We didn't know the effect the seizures were having. We knew that the vessels were incredibly delicate, and seizure activity, hemorrhaging, everything was a danger. So there were so many different things that we had to hold and try and navigate. One of the blessings that we really did have, and we see it in retrospect, is the nurses that were alongside us. They helped us. They spoke with us. They let us kind of use them as soundboards. We discussed what the different medications were, what they were going to be doing, what the side effects were, what all of it meant, because we also were keenly aware that for Sage to be able to survive, that right hemisphere needed to be safe. His left hemisphere was destroyed. There was literally no saving it, but the right hemisphere, everything was going to remap. That was kind of the hope. So it was also, too, from like a future perspective, how do we get him stable so that he can grow, so those neural connections can be made, so that he can get, so he can really have a chance to be, we also thought, there was going to be some palsy, some issues on one side of his body, but there were so many different things we were trying to manage, and it was all interconnected.
We had a very honest and difficult conversation with the head of cardiology and the neonatologist, and they basically said, we can manage his symptoms. We don't know for how long. I think they gave a figure of about 2 weeks, maybe.
Yeah.
But they said that basically doing that is not going to keep him alive because we can't address what's actually happening. So they recommended and really helped us facilitate the transfer.
Yeah, they rallied. And it was, we were up all night. We were up all day, just constantly discussing this, because there were also teams moving through, and the rounds that were taking place, and the medications were changing, and his status was changing. And they did their very best to help him and to help our family, and they did. They prepared us. And I mean, in retrospect, what happened there, yes, it did lead us to find Dr. Orbach at Children's and get Sage moved. And at Children's the next day, there was an intervention. He had an 8-hour brain embolization.
Right.